Hi, everybody. This is Haley, the co-founder of Keepsake House, and I'm here today with Autumn Chu, our blog writer, and Napat Snidvongs, who is an artist in residence at Keepsake House this year. And we're about to go behind closed doors with Napat, or Plum. And we'll get into that name, Plum, as well. Do you both want to introduce yourself before we start?
Sure. My name is Autumn Chu. There's a police siren going past my apartment right now. I'm the blog writer and video producer, and I help a little bit with the questions as well. So after the interview is done, I'll be going back and chopping it up and making it nice for YouTube and stuff like that. And Plum, do you want to introduce yourself, the kind of work that you do, and music you create and stuff?
I'm Plum Napat Snidvongs, and I'm an artist residence at Keepsake House.
And what kind of music do you make, and also film and stuff?
I just make I guess it's a just pop songs, right? Like folky type of pop song.
Cool.
And I work in an office doing production, mostly with sounds and videos. And I work as a freelancer. I do outside in working like a short film or documentary set.
Cool. Awesome.
Cool. And Justin, my partner, who also is a Keepsake House volunteer, calls Plum the Bon Iver of Thai music. So that gives you a good sense of what his music sounds like. So first question, Plum. We will call you Plum a lot in this interview because that's kind of how we know you. And I know that nicknames, as you have told me, are really common in Thailand, but do you actually know where the name Plum came from and why you were given that nickname?
Yeah, I think because just my mom likes fruit, and her nickname is Tang, which means melon, I guess. And so she tries to use something like my brother's name is Kapo, it means corn.
Oh, cool. So I assume like when you're talking to your family, they don't call you the English word plum, they call you the Thai word for plum, or
Yeah, everybody, even our friends or people once you get to know outside of like work, not outside of work, even your colleagues, they would use nicknames mostly.
interesting. Cool.
Does
What are
everybody in your family have fruit and vegetable nicknames?
Does No, it's only my mom because she's, she's just
The
cute.
first.
Yeah.
She is. I've met Plum's mom, Kate, and she is very cute and sweet
Mm.
and loves food.
Mhm.
so Plum, you're from Thailand originally, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it was like growing up in Thailand? So like your background there and how you got involved with music. If I assume you started doing music stuff before you moved, but can you tell us about your childhood in Thailand and what it was like and your musical influences from then?
Yeah, so I grew up, I guess, during the 90s. So it was pre-internet. There's not much going on.
Mhm.
And we get to spend a lot of time just with cousins and brother in Bangkok City. Nobody cares as long as you come back in a time. So we're just usually out everywhere. Uh,
Cool.
yeah, I don't know what we did. I
Uh,
can't. Just gotta
mhm.
ask my brother. He leads the pack of
I see,
us.
I see.
Yeah.
How did you get started with music when you were a kid?
It's like I started music kind of late. So I grew up in Thailand. I didn't care about music. I want to be an artist.
Oh, really?
I
So
was
like,
really good at drawing when I was a
mhm.
kid. And so we go back and forth. So my mom, she was doing really well business wise, and there was a certain time she sent us to America to like a boarding school.
Oh, I see.
And so I went to like military school. I went to like a
Oh,
boarding school in Massachusetts,
how old
and
were you when you started going to America for
we
school?
we grew up. I grew up until I was like 14,
Mhm.
and that's when I moved to military school in Pennsylvania.
Interesting. Okay.
And then
And
from there, I went to boarding school in Massachusetts. And so while in these settings, I was always like music was always it's just there's just nothing to do, you know. Growing up, it's just like a comic book and records and then radios and things like that.
I
So that
see.
was like the only two things that
Mhm.
and so anyways, after I went to boarding school, there was like economy crash.
Uh,
And so we had to come back to Thailand and I didn't finish high school yet. So there's a
and how
period where
sorry, how old were you when this happened?
I was around, I'd say like 15,
Mm.
16 maybe. It was 1998. And so during that time, before I had to do all these exams in order to prep for like my college years, I skipped like 2 grades.
Mhm.
So during those time, my my mom was going out with we call him uncle. Uh, and so he said, "Hey, you should pick up music." I think because he was just don't want me to be like lost during those two
Mm.
years.
Yeah.
And he used to be a musician, so he just bought like a guitar for me, and
Cool.
that's how I started just picking on guitars and figuring out chords, things.
Yeah. So you started by like listening to a lot of music when you were in boarding school, and then you actually started practicing when you went back to Thailand after boarding school in America. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. So since you listened to a lot of music in boarding school and stuff, who were like some artists that really inspired you and influenced you in those days?
Bob Marley, and it was in New England, right? So there's a lot of
Mhm.
these jam bands, kind of what vibe your friends are listening to, and also it's like post Nirvana, but there's still this grunge things going on. So Weezer, Nirvana,
I see.
and
Yeah.
also my brother, he's like really hip, so he's always into like the '90s hip hop. That was like a golden age. There was like Nas and things coming out, and also by the time we're about to come back, my brother kind of switched into like a rave thing. Have you guys heard of it?
Oh, I
It's
I think I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, he just go party all the time.
Mhm.
It's a rave party. It's crazy.
I have friends like that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they wear like really big pants, and so my brother was listening to like techno music by that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So I,
Cool.
I was exposed to those type of music, but not my kind of music, but I
Mhm.
was aware of like how trends
Yeah.
kind of come to music.
So what would you say is like your anchor genre, like the home genre that you always come back to and that inspires you the most for your music?
I think folk music is always I'm do you know have you heard of Daniel Johnston?
I haven't, no.
So he's like a Austin based musician, and he makes music just by cassettes, and it's himself, and he doesn't really know. I'm not sure how. It's his guitar and everything is like always out of tune,
Oh,
and I think he just does it like innocently. He's
yeah,
not
yeah.
aware of those things. When I was start making music, I always think that see, like in the '90s, music is just so far away from you, right? People who's putting out records are people like Gun and Roses,
Mhm.
and people with like such amazing talent. And so when you hear something like so homemade, it kind of give you the permission to say, "Oh, you can do this," and somebody is actually listening to it.
Gotcha. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I think there's kind of like a charm to like really low production music that's like, because most music that we listen to is very, very polished, very clean. It's like you have sound engineers working on it all the time. But there is kind of a special appeal, I think, to just one guy on a guitar or one girl on a guitar just playing for you and just having a
Mhm.
good time. I know
Right,
what you
right,
mean.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was accessible, I guess,
Yeah, yeah, that's the word.
comparing to me, playing guitar in the bedroom.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, like Peter Paul Mary's stuff like that,
Mhm.
like John Denver.
Yeah, totally. And so somehow we get from Plum playing guitar in his room to a record deal in Bangkok. You are a published musician, like a fully signed. I don't know the correct terminology, but you're like in the industry. You're in the music world in Bangkok, if I understand correctly.
Nah, I wouldn't put it that way. It's just like friends. It's like a 90s attitude, right? So you have
Hmm,
friends putting out CDs. It doesn't cost that much, just to
I see.
print like 500 copies of CDs and then so since there were not so many people doing things, uh I guess we came in at the right time.
Hmm, I see.
So that record label or whatever we put out, it became like a something kind of like viral, I guess.
That's pretty great though. That's really awesome. Can you kind of walk us through what that journey was like? How did you get from, just a guy in his bedroom playing the guitar to someone who's actually like publishing and printing music?
I was working. Music's always do. It's something I do on the side, so I always have like a full-time job,
Mhm.
and so I was doing these. Was working in advertisement and doing events marketing. So you pretty much set up like events for brands, right? To for
Yeah.
consumer brands, and so somebody I know, he's a musician, and he said there's a bunch of these guys who want to make like music festival,
Mm.
but it's more like a experimental. People just like making crazy noise in a small venue, and so
Yeah.
I helped them hosted those events,
Oh, cool.
and so one of the guys who's doing this project, we just became friends, and he wants to find like a good Thai artist, and so I start hooking him up with my friends who are having bands and things. And one day I also have a cassette demo. I have like a four
Yeah,
track
yeah.
cassette, and so I give him that, and he said, "Hey, let's do like a compilation with all these bands," and we just
Cool.
did it, and yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And so do you still kind of write and produce music as you publish regularly or?
Yeah, pretty much. I take a long time since it's my hobby, so maybe like I put out one every like 4 years.
Yeah, sounds about right. And
But
is it
yeah,
available to listen to online? Can you buy it on iTunes or listen on Spotify or anything?
yeah, it's everywhere. It's on iTunes, Spotify,
Cool.
Bandcamp.
How do we find you? What's your name on all these platforms?
Napat Snidvong, Napat and Snidvongs.
I'll get that and edit it in later. That's fine. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing all that's about your musical journey.
Thank you.
So you're very close with your family, whom I've met, and you often help out at the family business, Three Aunties. We've written about that, so we'll link it in the blog. And your brother Pod Horn accompanies you to many keepsake shows. Is your family also musical like you? You mentioned Pod's very hip and knows the trends. But does he also write music, and has your family always supported your music making?
Uh, no, my family is not like an artist type. I guess my dad's family is like there's a lot of musicians in that family, but I didn't really grow up with my dad's side so much. So it's more like my mom, but I don't know how I got into music. I guess it just makes sense. I figured out that just when I started the music with something so simple, it was so fun. That's why I kind of kept going because music is like fun for me.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. There's a simplicity. It's so I do like other stuff. I do like writing and video editing and stuff.
Mhm.
Music is compared to a lot of other stuff I do, music actually is really simple. It's like at the end of the day, you come back to like the same notes and the same chords over and over again. And it's kind of
Right,
nice. It's
right.
comforting to come back to that.
Because my brother teach filmmaking, right?
Mhm.
Or in a film school, and I feel like there's something not right about people so stressed out when they go out filming.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like it's the opposite way. They're just putting so much pressure, so much money into their craft, and it's kind of stifling, I guess, when you're starting out. It should be fun first, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's how
I
you're
agree.
encouraged to keep going.
I agree, totally.
Mm.
And so speaking of your family, you grew up in Thailand, your family is from Thailand, but my understanding is they then moved to the United States. Is that right?
They move after they've been going back and forth. So mother meets my father here when he was studying. He's a policeman,
Mhm.
and he was studying like criminology or something like that. And they met here, and so they got married, and then they moved back to Thailand.
Mm,
So it's been going back and forth. And so the last time that I moved here in New York, my mom says, "Oh, let's move to see Plum," and then she wants to start like a small business here
yeah,
because she was doing export in Thailand. So it just moved to the other side and import,
gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm. Cool. And so now she runs a family business called Three Aunties. Is that right?
Right. It's a
Yeah.
grocery store in Woodside.
Cool. Nice. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, or is it, is
It
there anything interesting, like any interesting stories there?
is there. Well, she had a few business, and it didn't. We didn't make it, and this is like her. She didn't have any money, so she took out some money from credit card one
Mm,
day. It's like it's
nice.
weird. She was just talking to her friends, and then one day she came back said, "Hey, I bought a grocery store." And then, just starting from there, and
All
it
right.
grew
Yeah.
pretty good because she sells things pretty cheap, so
Mhm.
so so people kind of like it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Um, the next question is about your latest record, but I'm like, I was just thinking, like, how the hell do I transition to that from what we were just talking about? Um, sorry. Okay. Well, yeah, let's go back to the music for a second and talk about your latest record, Thousands, which was released in 2021. Um, I don't know, just tell us about it. I don't have a prompt.
Uh, yeah, not a lot of people listen to it, but
That's
I
a
but
mood.
I,
Yeah.
but I love it.
Okay. Well, what inspired you to write it? What was kind of like your I mean, I guess you've always been writing music, but what were you thinking about when you were writing this record specifically?
It was during COVID, and so I felt like I love this record because after you do write songs and produce for a few times, you start to realize there's something that's other people don't do. You kind of
Mhm.
see an angle, and so I feel like this record I didn't use metronome,
Mm, yeah,
and so everything is kind of like live, me going in one take. And then I add something else later, like I have some friends record, but the main thing is just me playing. So it feels like if you're watching me perform in my room, it would sound just like that.
gotcha. Yeah.
And
And that's
so
like that's the angle that you want to take with it. It's like not a produced, not maybe that's the wrong word, but it's not like a highly polished produced record. It kind of captures that like spirit of live performance. Is that the angle that you're going for there?
that too, and I talked about this before with you that I feel like music nowadays there's not a lot of space in music.
Mm,
So when you listen to music, it feels like people try to fill every space.
yeah.
And so people who work in sound, I think maybe my ear is just tired.
Yeah. So
And
you
so when I listen to music with a lot of space, like folk music, like Joni Mitchell or stuff like in the 70s, it feels like there's a lot of space to breathe, and
gotcha. Yeah.
I wanted
Mhm.
to capture that kind of space.
Yeah. And that is something that I think I hear in your live performances also. The way that you perform does have like pauses and it has like silence between chords that it feels like part of the song. It's not just like, oh, I forgot what I'm playing. It's like you incorporate silence and pauses and empty space into your music in interesting ways.
Mm, thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And you recorded Thousands completely independently in New York City, right, during the
Mm.
pandemic? But you said you worked with a lot of friends. Are they musicians that you work with frequently, or?
No, I just go into this website where there's a lot of musicians, and I just like pay them.
Nice. Good.
That works too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
but
that.
I worked with the same guy all the time. He produces, he mixes the music, and I think without him, it would just sound like me recording by myself.
Mm, I
The
see.
second
What's
pair of
it,
ears.
what's his name?
His name is Koichi Shimizu.
Mm,
He's quite famous actually. He does a soundtrack for, there's a famous Thai director, Apichatpong. So they're frequent collaborators, and he's quite known in like a film people type of
gotcha.
circle.
Ooh,
Cool. Yeah.
okay, cool. We will definitely name drop him. I also wanted to mention two things. Plum is too humble, saying not a lot of people listen to this record, but I listen to this record all the time, so that's not fair. And the second thing is that you're very correct that this sounds like you playing live. If you listen to this record, and the song on it that I always think about is Bangkok Story, which you played at Linguistics, at our show
Mm,
Linguistics. And it sounds so much like it does on the record when you hear it in the room. And I appreciate that so much, and also the space in it, and the length of it. It's very like hypnotic. It goes on for 6 minutes, but if you don't notice it, like you really just, if you let yourself just listen, it's very, very like relaxing and almost meditative. But I also wanted to just mention too, that song Bangkok Story is very much like about Bangkok, but the whole album is made in New York. It's like the first one that you made and recorded in New York. It has New York's picture on the front of it. And so I love that element of it, that there's still that kind of connection to Bangkok and you're remembering it, but you're also, it's like the first album that is very New York too. So it kind of has both of those elements. Would you agree with that, Plum, or am I making something up?
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
I,
Yeah.
when I was making it, I didn't go back to Thailand for like 10 years just because we didn't have money. and then
Yeah.
and then one year we, there's something happened that we have to go back. I was so shocked how everything's changed. And so I think that made a lot of impact on me,
Mm,
how kind of like what I'm growing up in is kind of like a fading away. And it's weird, like as you get older, there's this thing that you never really experienced before, like it's, I guess it's like gratitude when you see all these places that you grew up, and you realize like oh my god, it took so many people to raise like one kid,
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
took so much help from so many people, right?
Mhm.
And everywhere you go, you kind of remembering like, oh, somebody took me here, or your friend kind of took me to that place. And so I feel like the record is like a expressing gratitude to those people and the
Yeah.
place.
Can I ask too? I don't have this written down, but where did the name Thousands come from?
So it's
Or
just from one of the songs, because I don't know why I named that. Let me think.
Take a second to
It's
think.
like
Yeah.
a catchy song.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
it's the song that I make like trumpet sounds on it.
oh yeah, the trumpet sound song.
One chord. Yeah, yeah,
We all
yeah.
know and love that one. Um, okay, well, you mentioned this already a little bit, but you work on independent film sets and you also work in production for your day job. You've talked to us, at least to Jasmine and me, about the sort of cinematic quality that music can have. What do you mean by that in your own words? And how do the two art forms of film and music overlap for you?
Yeah, I think music, I don't know, maybe it's just among our friends. We're into like ambience and atmospheric type of sound, So when making music, we want to capture it, not just the music itself, but maybe the air in that room. so that was our thing, you know. We enjoy, and I guess that atmosphere kind of translate into cinematic for a lot of people who listen to it.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it reminds me actually of Morning Glory's music a lot. You and I have talked, I think we talked recently kind of about how you and Morning Glory remind me of each other because you both do folk music. You both are very funny on stage. And you also
So
kind of,
funny.
no, I know she's so funny, but you are too.
You're
Um,
very funny, Plum.
and Morning Glory has been using a lot of that similar type of stuff, the ambient noise in her recent show with us, Outside the Lines. She did use like a backing track for one of her songs. But you haven't done that necessarily in one of our shows before, but you have you haven't done a backing track or like a visual element, which we might explore in future shows, but you have incorporated many times the audience into kind of making ambient type noises like trumpet sounds or echoes. So I love that about both of your music, that you're always kind of listening to everything around you and incorporating the city and birds or whatever it may be.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's just me just needing help in the live environment, you know. I'm trying
So
to
that
find like an angle in my life. It's like, you know, Autumn, you make records, right?
I don't. I just practice.
It's you writing song, making records, and playing live show is so different, you know. It's
Yeah.
totally different art, type of art form, and I feel like playing live is not something I've done a lot. So I'm trying to find an angle that's fun for me, you know.
Mhm. That
And
I
and
do
I feel
understand.
like
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like in a live show environments, it's kind of funny because there's like these hundreds of people, or for us like 10, 20 people
Yeah, it's like 10,
on
20
on
people.
the other side of a room watching one person perform, you know.
Mhm.
Doesn't make sense, right? Like we need to
Mhm.
use everybody.
Mm.
No, I love that. I think that's part of what makes you perfect for Keepsake House is that we never want to be 100, well, maybe like 150 from story to song, but we usually, for most of our shows, don't want to have a big audience on purpose because it's meant to feel intimate. It's meant to feel like the audience can interact with the musicians and that the musicians can, and I should say artists because storytellers too, they all interact with each other on stage as well. And I think that's something that you do so naturally. But I was also going to ask because I feel like you're giving away that you did perform live in Bangkok. Didn't you perform to hundreds of people?
Nah, just did like a few. It's not hundreds, but it, you know, photos and social media, it just fools you.
Okay, viral. It
But you
went
did
viral.
perform. But you did perform
Yeah,
in Bangkok.
I did. But still, you know, performing with your, maybe there's a guitarist. I performed a few times with like a small band, but it's nothing like going on yourself, being on
Mm.
stage by yourself, you know. That's like if I feel like if you can get to that, it's a real foundation, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So when I see somebody who can just go up on stage by themselves, it's just like it feels like that's a solid thing that bands
Mm.
can build on. So I'm always so impressed when I see people at for Keepsake because a lot of them they just perform by themselves, right?
We make them. Some of them don't usually. but
Mm.
yeah, no, it's a very, very vulnerable thing to ask of artists to perform by themselves. And I think it puts their kind of truest side out for everybody to see, which is also why we don't love having huge, huge audiences. Um, but yeah, getting into Keepsake House a little bit, we maybe you're kind of answering this already, but let's hear it from whatever your perspective is. We first approached you last year to ask you to perform in our show in September called Linguistics, and you actually, for those who don't know, said no at first. And it wasn't until I sent you a video of one of the previous shows that we had done that you kind of changed your mind, and it became more of a conversation. and you decided to perform ultimately. And then I was really happily surprised after linguistics that you applied to be an artist in residence. I wasn't necessarily expecting that. So why did you hesitate to perform at first, and what made you change your mind and want to play more keepsake shows?
I think I'm just not confident in performing live, and because I make music by myself, right? So going out live, it's always feel like just like a stretch for me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that way. Yeah, there's a
Mm.
big step from just like playing by yourself in your room to actually like going out on stage in front of people.
Right. Especially if you see people like Prince perform,
Yeah.
That's a high bar to compare yourself to.
but it's like because I don't enjoy there's a lot of shows that when I go I'm not excited about,
Oh yeah.
that's been my main thing lately, that it's not that maybe the artist just not the type of performers that I was into, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm trying to see a lot of why am I answering or get excited about a certain performers, even sometimes it's not perfect. Like I
Yeah.
was telling Haley about an open mic night in Astoria that I went, and it was so touching because it was mostly senior citizens who maybe after retired they start picking up ukulele, and it was so fun to see them perform. I don't, and
Yeah.
I'm always trying to figure out why I feel that way,
Mhm.
and that's like an important thing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know this relates to the next question, so I want Adam to ask, but I also wanted to, I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. So go ahead, Adam.
Okay.
It'll come
I was
back to
gonna
me.
I was gonna ask what was it about Keepsake in particular that made you think that made you want to perform? Because at first you weren't sure, but what sold you after you saw that video?
I feel like I can go out and entertain like Prince, right? But I know my songs pretty well. I can talk about my songs. That's
Mhm.
if you talk about songwriting, I can talk for a long time about songwriting.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh, that could be my angle. If there's somebody talking to me, I can talk about my songs and perform a little bit. And secondly, I performed a song in a foreign language, right? I just feel like it is it like boring to
It is.
listen to
It is not boring. I can confirm as
yeah,
someone who does not understand Thai but also listen to linguistics, it was not boring. It was actually very interesting.
yeah, I was just afraid. It's annoying when you're on stage, you always have this noise, let's say it's like, oh, they're getting bored.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, I know what you mean.
Right. And so that's like a see, performing live is it's like a different type of art, and I admired like Elizabeth so much because she was just there enjoying herself mostly, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a second. I also wanted to say that um you I love that you say that you think that this could be boring to perform songs in Thai for a mostly English speaking audience, but then you specifically chose your 6-minute song. So it's like you also challenge yourself whenever you do a show. Like you think that you can't do it or you say no at first, but then you do like the hardest thing. And I love that about you. And I think but Jasmine and I noticed that in you. And I also wanted to ask because I actually thought what you would say, so I'm curious, is it helpful to have other artists on stage with you? Does that make it easier or harder for you at the keepsake shows? Because you're not
Oh,
alone.
yeah, it helps definitely because
Okay.
you kind of learn. It's for me, I'm going there and I feel like I'm learning from everyone, because
Yeah, yeah.
in I guess it's in American culture, they a lot of performers they start out so young
Mm.
Yeah.
from their childhood. There's like a talent show and stuff like that, which we don't have in Thailand. And so every time when I go, I can always like steal things from Tony and Alex.
Yeah.
It's fun for
Well,
me to notice those differences.
mhm. Yeah, and not just with Keepsake shows, but I understand that you've been to like other shows around New York City too, even with the Keepsake people. So you're always like going around watching new artists perform, even watching like videos of concerts and stuff like that, of old Keepsake shows and stuff like that. So, uh, what kind of like drives you to look at all of this stuff? Like, what are you looking for when you go to like different concerts and watch videos and stuff like that? And what do you learn from them? What do you look to learn from them?
Was so much. I
Mhm.
Like I say, I was looking for something that kind of touched me because
Yeah.
that's my big thing. If you go up on stage and you lie, that's not never gonna work, you know.
Yeah.
People can detect kind of bullshit really easily.
Yeah.
So that's why I play a 6 minute song because I feel like I believe in it.
Hmm.
If you believe in things, people gonna believe you, you know, if you're
Yeah,
honest. And so
definitely.
yeah, I feel like when I'm on a live settings, I always look for what's kind of touch me and also what's not working for me, you know,
Hmm.
and try to distill it into what I can use.
Yeah. Do you have a specific show or like an artist you've seen or encounter you've had that like really kind of like solidified this for you? Like something that someone who like you really felt like totally sold on, like you totally believed what they believed.
Oh, like lately, I think past few years, have you heard of a guy named Bill Callahan? Named Bill Callahan?
I've heard of him. I don't know anything about him though.
He's just like live shows so amazing. And the craziest thing is that his music is so like monotonous.
Mm.
He's more like a poet, right?
Oh,
And
I
so
see.
his music is not very melodious, which is very different from me. But when you see him perform live, it's so amazing. It's like a hmm. If I'm to explain it, I feels like he kind of removes melody from the song and he kind of laid bare the lyric for people, you know.
Mm.
And the way you it's like a poet. It's crazy. It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's
And do you feel
very Mhm.
and do you feel like this is something you want to bring forward into your performances as well? Or
I try to, but I don't think I can be like that because
mm,
it's his it's like a cowboy attitude. I see a
mm,
lot of that in country song too.
yeah,
It feels
Mhm.
like music is just some fillings to the lyric, you know. The
mm,
lyrics like 80%.
I see. Interesting. Cool.
And it's just amazing to see. I love country music. So so
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've taken Plum to a lot of country music shows like William Prince and
Mm,
Ray Zaragoza. And I think I think I love watching Plum watch other shows, other artists, because Plum is so intent. And sometimes when you like a song, Plum, I can tell, and I feel like I'm similar. We're very expressive. So when you like a song, like you'll just start kind of rocking out to it when you're at the show. And that, like, I think that happened at the most recent show that we went to, Elizabeth in the Catapult, where you really liked the song Underwater, which I loved as well. I've been listening to it a lot afterward. And I think you pay a lot of attention to what you've been talking about, which is like stage presence and kind of how artists grab an audience's attention and like keep the audience entertained. But what you're hitting on is so true, which is that they ultimately have to be like just a greater version of themselves on stage. Like I think William Prince is like a very, very like thoughtful and quite like deep person, a very large person, so he takes
mm,
up presence quite naturally. Whereas
mm,
like Elizabeth in the Catapult, who we saw recently, is totally different. She's moving around the stage, she's a bit more chaotic, very
mm,
fun. And ultimately that's who they are as people. Like when we met them, it was very different. Um, so I think that I love watching you kind of figure that out. And I feel like you're figuring out who you are when you're on stage with us too.
yes,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the next question too, is that like basically just what has it been like for you being an artist in residence at Keepsake House, and what have you learned? You mentioned learning things from other residents, so can you talk more about what you've learned from the other residents this year or from last year from linguistics too?
Oh, so much. It's like if, when I see people, the artists in residence, it's like they already found their angle, you know. and so it's very enjoyable to see.
Yeah.
It's like I enjoy artists that you don't have to be famous, but if you kind of find yourself, there's something delightful about being like totally express that
Yeah.
that idea of yourself,
How
like
do you want to pick like one of the residents in particular and just talk about them specifically?
yeah, well, I just saw Alex for the second time on the last show. It was so amazing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's playing by himself, but in his head there's like a whole band in it.
Yeah.
And the dynamic, he usually start off like very loud, and which is the reverse of normally how I would do it. So like his song, the song that what is it called, Haley?
The
The
Sit
new
Back
single,
The new
or
single, right?
what
Everything
was it?
About You.
Right. So that song,
Coming out
uh,
April 6th, by the way.
we're coming on April.
7th.
7th?
It's
I thought it
so
was 6th.
amazing. It's
Okay.
like my mind's blown every time I listen to it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that song.
Not only because the beginning, he started off so strong, right? And then everything gets quieter and quieter. And
Mm.
at the hook, it's like nothing left. It's just him with like one string.
Mhm.
And so towards the end, he plays that hook again with a full blown chord, and so it's just like the way he's arranging things is so amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, you can definitely because he has such like a deep punk rock background and he's
Mm,
like grew up with that stuff. You can
mm.
hear like the spirit of punk even when he's on like an acoustic guitar. He plays it like it's a rock guitar. And it's really awesome to
Right,
see.
right. And his
I was just
voice, it's like those pop punk kind of. It's just like so him. That's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's delightful to see people just being themselves, I think.
yeah,
I was
totally.
gonna say too, the guitar Autumn, it like every time he plays an acoustic guitar, it almost makes me worried that the strings are gonna fall off because he plays it so passionately. But I think that's like that's just so cool to see because it's
Yeah.
rare to watch that with acoustic. It's like I get almost more excited to see it with an acoustic guitar than like
Mhm.
it's expected at a punk show, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
it's
yeah.
so cool. He's
Mhm.
the coolest.
And
He's great.
Tony
He's
too.
great.
But I haven't seen him from outside yet.
Or
So I
them,
was
them.
seeing him from the side, right?
Yeah.
So I think I need to give another maybe next show that they're in. I have to see Tony full on.
Mhm. Were
But
you
I
at the
the energy was just so fun. He's
were
like a
you at
Prince vibe, right?
yeah, yeah. Were you at Story to Song last year in December?
Or it's January you were. You
Was it
played. You
January?
played
Oh
with
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. Still, it's the same, right? Yeah. They were on the side, and
Yeah.
I could really experience it as an audience.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah. But
They are
that's still
playing. Sorry, Otto. They're playing with Molly for Now, which is another band that actually the drummer from Story to Song is in. Um, so Tony's playing with them in a couple weeks, sometime in April,
cool.
like the 14th or something at Pianos.
Oh, wait, did
It'll be
Tony's
great.
wait, Tony was doing a show with Alex too, right? Did that
They
pass
just
already?
had a
I
show this
did. I
past week.
missed
Fuck.
it. I missed it.
Damn it.
I
I
looked
forgot
for
about
you,
that.
Plum. Morning
No,
Glory was there, Livy was there, and we were headbanging
Oh,
to
I should have
Tony
put
and
that
then Alex
I,
with the full band.
I should have put that
mm,
in my calendar. I forgot about that.
I should have reminded you, Autumn. I was so busy this week, but
Oh, that's
it
okay.
was it was very fun, very hot, and very loud.
Yeah. I mean,
But they were both amazing.
Tony will perform again, I'm sure. So,
Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah.
So Plum, we've been talking a lot about the music side of things, but I think we have to mention to really capture like who you are as an artist, you're also very, very funny. And you may not think that you're very funny, but as someone who has like seen you perform a lot, I'm always cracking up whenever you're on stage. And your sense of humor is like because so like there's a lot of funny people like Morning Glory is funny, Alex is funny. They're all like great and charismatic and stuff, but you have like a very precise sense of humor where you just say one sentence very quietly and everyone starts laughing. That's something that I think is really cool about you. So is this something that you like think about consciously? Or are you like trying to be funny, or it just kind of like naturally happens this way?
no, I don't think I'm funny. I feel like it's a Thai culture. Everybody's so funny. So it
That's the
just
thing.
rubs
Like you say
off.
you're not funny, but every time, even just saying you're not funny just made Haley laugh, and it's very natural. You know what I mean?
Last time I watched Livy Morning Glory,
Mhm.
and she said she saved a lot of funny clips, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the thing that you consume. I like to watch
Mm.
funny things,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
see those things kind of come out when you're nervous, or when you're
I see,
talking
I
on.
see.
Mm.
What's something
Yeah, the
that
pop culture.
yeah.
Mm.
What's something that you've seen that's really funny that kind of like sticks out to you that you feel like comes back to you again and again?
Have you ever seen those picture of like Chinese grandmas? They're doing like really, really weird pose.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
They make
I
like
need to look this up. I'll look it up and send the
they make like a
photo.
star shape.
Yes,
Yeah.
Plum
It's like
has
Oh, no, I know. No, I know what I know what you're
Plum,
talking about. Yeah.
to give a little bit of context too, Plum has sent us these photos in response to our emails before.
I did.
So I will find one that we can insert into this post and video. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like those type of humor, like innocently, they're not aware that they're funny, but it's kind of absurd. It's a lot. You see a lot of those in Thailand.
Yeah.
People just doing their thing, or they're wearing like politically wrong T-shirts.
Yeah.
It's so awkward, but it's great because they're not aware of it.
You guys can't see this, but actually no, not screen capturing, never mind. But I found the specific image. I'll edit it in afterwards.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was also going to say, Plum, do you know Sheng Wang, the comedian?
I've heard. Is he the Costco guy?
Yeah. Justin may
A lot
have
of-
told you.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of people send me they tell me to check him out.
Yeah, I think you would like him talking about like the innocent humor. He is just everyday life into the most hilarious sentences, like the way that he
Right,
weaves
right.
stories
That's-
about avocados. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's great.
If you grow up in Bangkok, there's a lot of those things. Yeah, it just
Mm.
people solving problems in their own like genius way
Yeah.
with
Mm.
Yeah.
no money. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very happy, not to like generalize an entire country of people and the struggles that they go through, but it is a very happy culture that is known for being like bright. And so I wonder if that's part of it too, like the humor that you're talking about is very cultural.
Yeah, I don't know why. They're just funny. They're just cracking jokes all the time. It's like really lame jokes too. Let's say like if you say somebody's name and they would, I don't know if this makes sense.
It's okay.
But yeah, let's say if you like talk about somebody with the same name, like Elizabeth, they would just purposely bring up another Elizabeth just to confuse you. And it's just these type of humor,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
always like we can't ever get anything done.
Good thing we don't know another Plum, so you're fine.
Yeah. So, so you also were kind of like I was gonna say you're the brainchild, but that's not how that works. The next Keepsake show is your brainchild. It is the Sounds of the Invisible, which is about ghost stories. Is that right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I think I was talking to Jeff about. I was just explaining how my uncle. Well, I have to be careful about this. And so
Okay.
my uncle was my mom boyfriend, right? And so my dad doesn't really like him, and so I
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
want to be like, oh, my stepdad is so cool and stuff. Anyways,
Yeah.
he's a
Okay.
medium,
Noted.
and so when we are growing up, he just tells a lot. He's a really good storyteller, and he tells stories about things that you can't see,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like very random. When we drove past some place, he would just mention something really weird, and we can't see it. As a kid, it was just magical
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
to hear those type of stories. Have you ever seen a movie called Big Fish?
No.
So he's like that. The character, he tells a lot of stories, and you can't really tell if it's a lie or he actually see them.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So as a kid, it's just like magical for me.
Yeah. What's like one particular story that you remember really well?
Oh, this is amazing. He said people who practice black magic. Well, I
Yeah.
don't know why he mentioned it. He said people who practice black magic, they can't enter Bangkok
Really?
because there's this pillar, which I don't know where they are, but it's like a four corners around Bangkok that's been set up so that black magic petitioner, if they pass it, they kind of lost their power
Oh,
because the capital
wow.
city, it's where the king lives, right?
Mhm.
And so they said the kings or whoever protects the king kind of have this pillar set up.
Cool. Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's true. It just sounds
It,
amazing.
it sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give
Because
us another. Give us one more story.
mm, what else that I found?
Could also be about, you've talked a little bit about the radio show.
Oh, the radio shows. That's still going on today, and it's very popular radio shows. It's on YouTube now,
What's it called?
and it's called Ghost Radio.
Ghost Radio. Nice.
I'm actually listening to it before you guys
Cool. Yeah.
before this meeting. I'll send you a link. And
Yeah.
so it's a show that it goes live every midnight on Sunday and Saturday in Thailand, right? And so people will tune in, and it's like amazing.
Mhm.
Like maybe 100,000 people would tune in.
Yeah.
And in the days where everything is so separated with political and things like that, it's just amazing to see like the whole nation is tuning in to listen to these stories.
Yeah.
And also another fascinating thing is you get to hear life of people who's not kind of represented in the media in Thailand,
Mm.
because you hear people from like salesmen who traveled up and down the countries and how
Yeah.
they have to go into this crummy hotel and they
Mhm.
see some ghosts or
Yeah.
paranormal experiences.
Do you have any stories from Ghost Radio that really stood out to you?
Oh, there's so many.
Pick
It's
just one. Pick your favorite one.
is uh this one guy who calls in every once in a while, and there's like a big cult going on because
Oh.
he's such a good storyteller.
Mhm.
And so I can't pick just one because it takes a really long time to finish these stories. It takes like
Yeah.
an hour maybe.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
and it's just the way these storytellers, the really good one, they create like a very believable world that you can
Mm.
enter in. And that's and so just by listening to these, you learn a lot about storytelling too.
I see. I see. So it's
And
not
they're
just like
natural,
one-off.
and
Yeah.
and they're like an artist. It's nobody knows who they are. They're just a voice, right?
Mhm.
And yet they take time to arrange all these stories, calling in, and to me they're just like a legit artist, or
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
call it like raconteur, right?
Say that again.
Raconteur, or people who tell
Raconteur.
stories.
I
Like a
don't think I've
raconteur. There's a word in French,
Yeah.
French. Oh my God.
but I don't know if it's translatable. We'll
Oh,
look it up.
Yeah.
it's in the dictionary, but I've never heard this word before.
A
Well, there
person
you
who
go.
tells anecdotes in a skillful and amusing way.
Yeah.
Right. But cool. Yeah. Um,
For sure.
so we do have an upcoming show called Sounds of the Invisible, which is based on these ghost stories. And can you tell us more about what your idea for the show was and what it's going to look like?
I'm still not very sure. Sound of the Invisible is so vast, right?
Mhm.
And so I thought a lot about maybe for Thai people, spirits is just in everything.
Mm.
So it not necessarily have to be like spooky stories.
Yes.
It could be something like uplifting or like a nice spiritual things too.
Yeah, totally.
So I was
Yeah, for sure.
thinking of going that direction, maybe.
Yeah, I think wherever you go will be great fun. We are drawing people in by talking about ghost stories, but I think it'll definitely have a more uplifting note than you would think. And then this summer, we also have you in another show. And I know you don't know a ton about this show yet because we're still getting artists for it. But we have a show coming in July called Americana the Beautiful. And that show, in my head, is really meant to challenge the definitions of Americana music. So, in your own words, how would you describe the music you write? You kind of answered this already, but feel free to change it, or we can edit it out if it's the same. And then what impression do you hope to give to American audiences when you perform here?
And I think before that, even too, like, what is your impression of America? Because you have a kind of unique perspective as
True.
someone who grew up in Bangkok and kind of heard about America as like this other place that you could go to. So you have like this ability to take a step back and look at it objectively in a way that someone like me or Haley, who you grew up in America, right, Haley?
I grew up in America and Canada. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, it's like when you grow up outside of it, you get this new unique perspective on the culture that you don't really have if you're immersed in it your whole life. So, but in addition to what Haley's asking, like what you want to bring across, can you also tell us like what does America mean to you? Like what's your relationship with this country and this culture?
Mm,
It's a big
it's like a
question, I
big
know.
question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really think that big. I usually just think like in small things.
Give us a small thing then. Give us a small piece of America as you understand it.
Mm, I've been interested in like Americana, like cowboy,
Yeah.
Western films, stuff
Mhm.
like that.
What about that is interesting to you?
I think it's well, all this is through the lens of Bill Callahan, my
Okay,
favorite.
yeah.
It's so minimal and stark and very, as I guess it's very different from the concept of America where it's access, right? But I feel like a cowboy lifestyle is very minimal, very stark. You only take what you need,
Gotcha.
and
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess when you talk about America, it's what I'm thinking right now, and it also just the concept of cowboy is also being challenged right now, right?
Hmm.
It's the Republican male type of figure, right? That's being
Yeah.
kind of challenged right now.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting to see it's not only America, but I feel Thailand is the same way. The people who's very quiet and reserved and kind of like an old school type of male figure is kind of being pushed into Republican or mm, like an dated type of figure, you know.
Mm, interesting. Yeah.
And so I feel like especially people of my generation, my brother, we grew up looking up to these ideal, right? And so now there's a new wave of people who's kind of challenging it, and the way that you're, let's say if you're patriotic, now it became an old school thought, and it became like pretty much uncool, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's true.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and so things like this, I'm feel like I'm in the middle of it, and I'm trying to find space in it, how to
Yeah.
navigate, how to keep what's good about it, you know, and also how to be like accepting or changing with the time too.
Yeah, totally. Is that
So
something that you feel like is represented in your music as well as you're writing it? Or are you still working on that part?
Yeah, I think so. The music, it's like I say, I was kind of talking about my the last album. I feel it was like a saying goodbye to the time before COVID, you know,
Mm, yeah.
and maybe for a lot of younger people, it's just like a nostalgia thing. But for me, it's about we're leaving something good too behind, you know.
Mhm.
While we're just hurrying to accept all these new things, you're not preserving what's good about the past.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of afraid those things is gonna be gone away in like 10 years.
Mm, yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah. And that is a good hook, I think, for what Americana the Beautiful can mean. That's a good direction to take it, I think. So we'll keep that in mind. It's a long ways off still, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, I think that's a really good metaphor for the show because it is kind of, like I said, a challenge. It is challenging what Americana music is and how it's been defined and how it's been really gate kept. Like there's a lot of people that have been told, Alex Wong, for example, has a story about how he was told that his music is not Americana music when he applied to be, I don't want to speak for him, but this is what I heard, when he applied to be part of the Americana Music Festival. He was denied for many years. And really the only like explanation that he felt could come from that was because he was Asian. And because his music could easily be Americana music if you took the person, if you took the face away from the music. And I think that's like kind of what this show is about. It's about how your music, Plum, to me is Americana music. It is representative of exactly what you're talking about, like the kind of nostalgia of this place and loving this place when you see it and experience it as somebody new to this country, which is where this genre comes from. And a lot of what you write to me is very like what we call place based, where it's like you're writing music about a place that you're in and about a location, and even how you like idolize cowboys or like that kind of, they're right, like what they are is so much about the landscape. Like when you say they're stark, it's because like they're in like a prairie or like a desert. It's like they're in a stark place. And I think the music you write is so much influenced, we've already talked about it through this whole interview, about influenced by the place that you're in, whether it's Bangkok or here. And so yeah, anyway, I think you're perfect for this show for all of those reasons, but I can't wait for us to get into like deeper conversations about it. But we're at the last question now, so don't mean to keep you too long. So this is a question that we ask everybody who does this interview with us. So at Keepsake House, we talk a lot about the magic in live shows and the communities they help create, almost like every live performance is itself a keepsake that you cherish from a whole house of life experiences. So tell us about your most memorable or fulfilling live performance. This can be a performance that you were part of, that you performed in, or it could be a concert that you saw, like Bill Callahan. So this is essentially like the most memorable live performance, the thing that you want to cherish and keep forever, what you would grab first in a fire.
For any live performance?
Any live performance, whether you performed or just saw it.
Oh, you know, I have a good one for you.
Ooh, good.
So I think Elizabeth and the Catapult gig that we saw a couple of weeks ago, that was amazing gig, because we talked about this before, that I see a lot of good musicians, and I'm never impressed by virtuosity. But Elizabeth, she just has so much joy when playing, and I feel like same with Morning Glory, right? When you have joy, it kind of wins over everything.
Yeah.
Like all the things that you're supposed to be as a musician, it's just being thrown away when you see like a kid playing ukulele, and it was joyful, you know. And so I feel like Elizabeth is a person, like, first of all, if there's a show by her, just go see it. You know, it's amazing experience. At first I thought like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, but then when she plays, just like mind's just blown, you know.
Yeah.
And not only that, she's joyful, and she's just also a very skilled musician. You can tell her influence is just like from classical music, from I don't know what she listens to. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Go see the band. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And you can see her performing with Plum on April 20th at Sounds of the Invisible.
Wait, we have her for Sounds of the Invisible?
Yes, the person he's talking
that.
about is going to be playing with him in less than a month now. So that's very exciting.
I didn't know that either. That's news to me.
Yeah.
And also Valerie. Last time we saw,
Yeah.
she what's the pronoun that
she,
right? She's just amazing. It's like she's so funny but so wise, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like for me, I that's what I'm looking for, these days, just like a piece of wisdom that somebody kind of share through their stories. And
Mhm.
when it's something that you learn from your own experience and you share it, it just it's like precious, you want to
Yeah,
hear it.
yeah.
Yeah, love that. You give us wisdom too, Plum.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, Plum. Those are all the questions we have, unless you want to tell the world something else.
Nah.
All right. Nice. Yeah.
And so as we're signing out, Autumn's gonna play us some music.
Put her on the spot.
Maybe I'll do that in post. No.
Oh, that could be fun.